Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we got another Gun Gripe episode for you, and we're going to talk about bad days at the range. Okay, it happens to all of us from time to time. You go out and either your guns aren't working, there's something wrong. It's like the little gun gremlin has just reared his ugly little head, and nothing's going according to plan. You're not shooting worth a crap. A gun that maybe normally you shoot really well, you're not shooting worth a dang. Something's wrong. Some malfunction. It's either operator headspace, or the gun is not right, or you're bringing crappy ammo. Something happens, and there's some gremlin at the range that rears its ugly head, and all of a sudden you're having a bad day at the range. Now, there's really no such thing as a bad day at the range. Anytime you're outside slinging some lead down range, it's always a good day, just like there's no such thing as a bad day fishing. So it happens. The reason we want to make this video is to let you guys know, even though we shoot guns all the time, we still run into those days where sometimes you just have a bad day at the range.
Sometimes I feel like we run into it more because we deal with guns like almost every day. You know, we're out at the range shooting and we're testing stuff out. I mean, we test guns out quite often. I'll go out and I'll group guns. And sometimes, you know, we get a gun in for review or whatever, and I put it on paper and I'm like, there's no way this thing should be acting like this. I mean, I guess if you start with a particular example, I mean, that was one, Savage MSR. We got one in and it wasn't shooting very good. And every now and again, you know, we get a lemon in, so we send it back, and you know, we've got a new one in. I haven't brought it out to test yet, but I've seen other videos of them, and they seem to be shooting pretty well.
Right.
But I'm hoping that our new one will shoot good, and we can actually do a video for you guys. But you know, every now and again, something like that happens. It's a waste of ammo, waste of time. We could have been doing something else, but you don't know unless you get out there and do it.
You got to get out there and shoot. And the thing is, like, the more guns you end up getting a hold of, eventually you're going to find something that is going to pose a few problems. I have one of the early Ruger precision rifles in, and we couldn't get the thing to group for anything, and it turns out it was one of the earlier guns and they had made some revisions, so I had to send the thing back to Ruger. And of course, they're excellent. All of these companies we're talking about, they're excellent people. They made it right. They got me another gun out. Now, since I haven't had a chance to shoot the new gun that I got back in just yet, but sometimes you have a bad day at the range, and sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes guns can just be lemons. It happens, guys. I mean, it's a manufacturing process, and sometimes a gun can just not shoot, you know, and sometimes that happens. And, you know, I always like to, you know, when we make range videos and we go out and shoot things for you guys, we try to just have fun and show you what happens as it happens. Now, if we go out sometimes and something's really shooting really piss poor, we might go back to the drawing block just to try to find out if maybe that gun might have been a lemon. In fact, another Ruger we had a Ruger LCP2 in. That we got a video out on. I don't know if we released that video yet.
No, I haven't even edited that video yet.
Oh, we haven't. Okay, but we were having some malfunctions out of the gun, and we're thinking, dang, what in the heck could be going on here? Well, it turns out it wasn't even the gun's fault. It was the ammunition that we were using. We were using some of that SIG-TAC
Elite or whatever,
Elite ammo or whatever, and it was having multiple malfunctions, and it turns out ended up being an ammo-related
Well, at the
failure.
time, that was the only ammo that you were able to find for that gun.
Right.
We just kind of added it to the list. When we go out and we do like handgun videos, we'll take 5, 6, 7, 8 guns out, and we'll have some backups or whatever. If things are rolling along real well, we'll do more. We'll knock out 5 or 6 handgun videos in one day.
Well, enough about us, though.
But anyways.
Now, what about the average person that has a bad day at the range? I mean, what can they do? Okay, so you're going out, and a gun that's normally grouping well, it's not grouping. Okay, something's wrong. A gun that you know is accurate as heck, and it's not. There's a lot of fundamentals related to shooting that sometimes even guys like us can sometimes, you know, have issues with. I mean, it's easy to heal a lot with certain guns. It's, you know, especially pistols. You know, rifles, I've generally found that I rarely have a bad day behind a rifle unless there's something gloriously wrong or something I'm doing wrong. Sometimes you're just having a bad day. It happens.
Or some bad hand loads.
Or some bad hand loads. We ran into that problem the other day.
Bad primers or something. We had some, you know, we were talking about y'all, but we're talking about us again. I loaded up some 30-06 for a few videos. We did a video on the Madsen. We did a video on P17, and we were trying to do a video on the
Garand.
No, not my 1903 A3.
Okay.
And you know, these hand loads, I loaded up like 300 rounds of ammo. I'm like, yeah, that ought to be enough. Well, I must have some bad primers because we were getting some hang fires, and then the Madsen was never head spaced. And we found out after the fact that it was a little bit long in headspace department, so we blew up around in the chamber and blew out the bottom of the floorplate and everything.
We had a case head separation in the Maston. So guys, sometimes these gremlins happen. You have to be ready for them. And sometimes it helps to just put the gun down, relax, hang out for a minute, collect your thoughts, do something else, look at your phone for a minute. You know, there's mental blocks that occur with everything. It doesn't matter if you're golfing, if you're fishing, anything you're doing that you like to do, especially an outdoor activity. Sometimes you can develop these mental blocks, and that's what separates the pros from the weekend warriors. And that's the thing, like, you have to perform consistently. I mean, if you're a professional golfer, those guys have to consistently perform. You can't just go out and have a good day at the golf range, right? You have to go out and play golf consistently. Same thing with a race car driver, same thing with an athlete, whoever athlete you're talking about, same thing with professional fishermen, same things with guys like Jerry Michlik or Julie Galab or any of those professional shooters.
I was going to say, professional shooters. I mean, for example, Jerry, he told us a story a little while back about how he went to a competition one time and he, had everything ready to go, brought out his revolver, went to fire, that first shot. And I think there's videos of it out there, but went to fire that first shot and it was like click, 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 click. His firing pin was broke. Or, the transfer bar was broke or whatever the case was. But, luckily enough, I mean, being Jerry, they let him actually they didn't disqualify him. They let him reshoot it after his gun was repaired. But things like that happen quite often. And if you're a professional shooter, you have backup guns and you just have that mentality where you have to kind of get back in it and just, I guess you just have to shoot.
It's easy to get discouraged. And I tell you, it happens to me. Sometimes I struggle with some pistol designs shooting them accurately.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, some guns I can shoot extremely well. I mean, like, depending on what it is. But some guns, if I'm not used to them, like the other day, we had a H&K USP out at the range that we got in to do some review work on, and we just want to see what it was all about. I could not hit the right side of a barn with that gun.
We were doing okay with it. Like, Kevin shot it. He did pretty good. And then I just couldn't get quite used to the trigger. That's the thing. Like, I'm so used to shooting the striker fire triggers and everything. And even like 1911s. Eric shoots 1911s a lot better than I do because I'm just not accustomed to being behind a nice, crisp single action trigger or single stage trigger like that. But those HKs, we just couldn't quite get around them. So the video really wasn't going to show the gun in its pure light. So we decided to just kind of scrap it. And we've got all that footage. And you guys are seeing footage of our bad days at the range.
Sometimes, guys, we scrap videos. Yeah. It just depends. I mean, like, if we get out there and things aren't going according to plan, it just don't feel right. You ever get that feeling? Sometimes you do something and just for some reason just doesn't seem right. Sometimes we'll get out and we'll start the camera and it's like, this video just isn't coming together like we thought. I mean, if we're shooting 5 guns really, really good and then a couple of them, it just seems like for whatever reason we just can't get them to shoot, then we'll go back to the drawing board and try to figure out what we're doing wrong. And we'll review a lot of the footage too. Sometimes filming yourself at the range is a really good idea to self-diagnose what you're doing.
Especially slow motion.
Yeah. So you can tell if you're really milking that trigger, if you've got too much trigger in the finger guard and you're pulling those shots to the left, or if your grip on the gun isn't right, or maybe the gun doesn't fit your hand well. And because, like with me on 1911s, in our recent Ruger video we did on the SR 1911, I noticed that I was healing with the gun really bad because that really deliberate, I can't talk today, that deliberate, mainspring housing has this really sharp butt to it, and it just doesn't fit my hand as well.
You've been used to that E-Series.
As the bobtail on the E-Series, I noticed that I don't heal with that gun as badly because the gun fits my hand better.
It kind of rolls in your hand better. I've noticed that too. Right. I mean, even like a round butt, revolver, I kind of prefer the round butts now as opposed to like the square butts just because of that.
And feature, I guarantee you that you'll shoot that round butt 1911 E-Series a little bit better than you would the Ruger probably. So it just comes down to, like, sometimes a gun just doesn't fit your hand right. It's not that you're not a good shooter, guys. You're probably shooting just fine, but it takes experience and shooting a lot to know that, wow, this type of gun design just doesn't fit my hand that well. Like, I noticed I was having to make a deliberate effort to change my grip if the gun moved around on me, or if I broke my grip to load a magazine or put the gun down. When I picked the gun back up, I'd have to kind of reestablish that specific grip because I was healing with the gun really bad. And when you're healing, you're basically putting excessive pressure or sometimes not enough pressure on certain areas of the gun, and that healing can cause the gun to really move in your hand. And that movement in your hand, that healing, you're not holding the gun steady as you really could if it were properly fitted to your hand, and that healing can cause your rounds to just not hit where you want. And it can also affect your sight picture. You're lining up the sight picture perfectly and you're squeezing that, you're doing everything that you need to do, but if that gun rotates in your hand, that round's not going where you're aiming. So you having, holding the gun straight, holding it consistently, using all the fundamentals, all of those things are kind of exasperated a good bit when you're dealing with handguns. Handguns are harder to shoot, period. They are. So a lot of these gremlins that we talk about, or well, I say we like I have a frog in my pocket, but me personally, I have the most difficulty with handguns for that reason, because it really is a comfort thing. Like the gun has to fit your hand comfortably. I don't really like the way a Glock fits my hand that much, but I do like the way they shoot. They're accurate. I like the trigger on a Glock, and they're really, really reliable, and they're really rugged. So sometimes certain features have to sort of outweigh negative features. No one gun is going to be perfect for you, but sometimes you have to compromise on certain features a little bit.
That's why you've seen the market kind of go to the modular handguns, with replaceable back straps and things like that. And like in the case of like the SIG 320s, they've got basically replaceable frames. You just buy a whole new frame and drop your chassis and everything into it and drop your upper back on it, and you're good to go.
You're right.
And those things are very, very form-fitting to the hand.
Modular handguns are great. Sometimes the bore axis of a handgun can affect how you shoot. It just depends on how you see the sights, how you break the shots, how consistent your fundamentals are. I've seen some people that I can hand a Makarov PM to, and with a little bit of instruction, I'll start them off on a Walther P22, or something like that, or like a little Smith & Wesson compact, and I'll have them shooting nice tight groups, and once I have them understanding the fundamentals, I can say, all right, I'm going to hand you a blowback now, and I can hand them a Walther PPK or a Mac, and they can sit there and drill the target. My wife's one of them. She shoots excellent, but it comes down to the comfort level of the gun, it fit in her hand properly, and understanding the fundamentals. Some gun designs just, for some reason, it seems like it is a personal preference thing. Like some people just don't shoot some guns as well as others.
It is.
And that might have to do with your hand size, your body, your frame, and everything. The way you see the sights, the bore axis, how tall you are. I mean, all of those things come into play, I believe, when it comes to that stuff.
Some of the handgun videos and stuff that you guys see us do, I mean, we just go out there and have fun and just show the guns off and everything and just give us, basically give you our thoughts on it and some key features and stuff. But there's some days when we go out and I'll shoot a given gun better than Eric, or he'll outshoot me. I mean, I was having a terrible day with the little Combat Magnum that we went out to do a video on. Eric had shot that gun a little bit more than I had, and I hadn't been behind a revolver in quite some time, but for the love of everything, I just could not get behind that gun consistently. Although being a Smith and knowing how our other Smiths shoot, I mean, most of them just pit the ace. I knew it was me that was having the issues and whatnot. It wasn't really the gun's fault.
Sometimes it just happens, guys.
Pulling shots or whatever the case was, and like the SIG, the P226 that we did, I was shooting that gun a little bit better just double action than I was in single action. I was decocking it and shooting, the soda bottles. I was missing the soda bottles right and left single action. So, sometimes it's just like that. And
have we released the video on the 220 yet? The 45 single stack?
No, we haven't. Well, we were going to do a video on it, but then we weren't really shooting it all that great. No. I don't remember what the case was, but
that gun was eating my hand alive. It wasn't. I didn't really like the way it fit my hand that much.
The same thing happened with the Shield 45. When we first went out to do the video on that, we always bring extra guns just to test out and things like that, especially handguns.
Yeah.
And just to see how well we can shoot them, everything, kind of get used to the feel of it and all. And neither one of us were shooting that gun worth a flip. No. Eric was just having a bad day. And
the video on the 45 Shield, the ported one that we released not too long ago, that particular video was the second time we'd had that gun out. I try to make a deliberate effort to mention, like, hey, we've had this out a few times before. I hope you guys understand when we say that, we mean that we've literally spent a half a day with it. I mean, when we say we've had it out before, we mean it. So sometimes you have to take a second look at something. Don't always try to garner opinion on a gun just from one range session. A lot of times when we've taken a gun out to do a video on it or something, chances are we've taken it out at least a couple of days prior to that and ran at least 600 rounds out of the damn thing.
Like the case with the HKs, with the USPs, we had a few of those models in, and I'd never played with them before, and like we said, we couldn't get used to the trigger and just the feel of the gun and all, but the Mark 23, on the other hand, I mean, that thing, you can get behind that thing, and anybody should be able to shoot that gun just lickety-split.
That gun is so accurate, it's not even
something
funny.
About those USP triggers and just that long pull, I don't know, just something about it just doesn't feel right.
I have to say I'm not a fan of the USP. Now,
we're going to try them
VP9 is something that's growing on me a bit, the striker fired VP9. And guys, there's so many different things like this. I didn't really want this video to be about us per se, but I'm trying to kind of share some of our experiences so that maybe some of you guys having bad days at the range can kind of know where it stems from. You know, it's a mental thing. You know, sometimes you mentally psych yourself out when you're at the range, and you have to be able to just kind of walk away and drink some sweet tea and deal with it. And I tell you, during the summer, you know, when we're cutting a lot of reviews and doing a lot of outdoor stuff during the summer, I mean, here in Georgia, I mean, it gets 100 dang degrees with 100% humidity. And believe me, it's hot. And you're out there like boiling your brain trying to remember like specs on guns and things like that. Now, an average person, maybe not, you know, worried about every little nut and bolt. They just want to go out and shoot and have fun or whatever. That's fine. But from our aspect, yeah, sometimes it can be mentally taxing to be out there and have to try to remember all the information about all the guns we're talking about and then try to compare it to all your previous experiences. It almost kind of turns into one of those deals where it's too many cooks spoil the broth type thing. I mean, you almost wish that you could only be exposed to 1 or 2 handguns and then nothing else. And that way you could just, hey, I love this and that's it. But as you, I mean, because we are enthusiasts in this type of thing, you do want to try a little bit of everything. And after a while, it's like you end up, you know, messing with so many different guns that, yeah, sometimes your interpretation of all of those things are going to kind of blend into one little melting pot.
Kind of is. Like, we go out and there's so much to remember, you know, I'm behind the camera and Eric's doing that. I'm like, no, that ain't right. No, got to restart. And like, bad day at range can be behind the gun or behind the camera. It can. Sometimes. It gets a little frustrating every now and again.
But filming yourself does help, though. Like I was saying, you can diagnose issues. I mean, especially if you've got even just an iPhone.
Yeah,
that has like the slow-mo capabilities on your iPhone, that's enough to tell if you're bumping that muzzle down when you squeeze the trigger. I mean, you can at least use that as a training aid to help diagnose. I mean, just like guys do when they practice their golf swing. Some people will buy like a basic slow-mo camera or have somebody film something on their iPhone.
Dude, the iPhone's
and then they'll diagnose their golf swing or they'll diagnose their cast with a fishing pole. I mean, that's a great way to know what you're doing wrong is to record yourself. And what's funny is, I shouldn't even really admit this, but that is really what got us started on YouTube. Is we were out there just filming ourselves to know, mainly to just kind of document what we were doing, but then also, you know, diagnose things like trigger squeeze, like to see if we were jerking the trigger around on certain guns, or to just see like, hey, we're going to see how good this gun shoots, and we'll document it just for the sake of us knowing later, so that when we maybe want to do a little bit more work with this particular gun, we'll have a kind of a record of it. And that's how it started. That's how we got started on YouTube, was by just documenting things that we already happen to be doing. I encourage everybody to do that type of thing. And now we more or less do the same thing. I mean, the production quality might be a little nicer than what it used to be. We use a little bit nicer cameras. But at the end of the day, we're doing the exact same thing we've always done for, what, 7 years now? 6 or 7 years? We've been at this a long time. So over time, I mean, you see these little gremlins that kind of surface their ugly heads in your everyday life, and we understand. I mean, it can happen to everybody.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of other bad days at the range, like examples. Okay, so
you were short shucking that lever action.
Yeah, I was short shucking the lever action. The video just dropped on it recently, but like I just wasn't getting that lever all the way out, because the last lever action I think that I shot had a standard lever on it, didn't have the big loop. So I was just used to throwing my hand just a little bit to get that thing to cycle, and being a 357 mag, it's a short throw anyways, but my hand was hitting the edge of that lever, and then I was just not kicking it forward.
Through.
Yeah, just not kicking it so far forward, and just trying to run a little bit too fast, you know, getting a little overzealous with the gun. But, you know, things like that happen.
I know when we did that stuff with Scott, with the axe throwing, knife throwing, archery, man, it took us all day to film that stuff with Scott, because just to try to get good shots of us throwing axes and knives and archery and just all this stuff, that's totally foreign to me.
Scott can do it just about every time, but we're novices with that kind of stuff, for sure.
So, you know, sometimes you have to practice things. Everybody is new at something at one point. And if it's one thing I can say about a bad day at the range, is what a bad day at the range should do is empower you to discover what you're doing wrong and get better. I mean, guys, if you're a new shooter and you're watching this video and you're this far enough in this video to hear me say this, you know, don't get discouraged. You know, go out, have fun, shoot. Try not to take yourself too seriously. Just have fun. And that's what I try to do. I find that the times that when we're out filming, and even when we're not filming, if we're just shooting, the times that I shoot and do the best are times when I'm not trying to beat any record or impress anybody or impress myself or do anything other than just enjoy shooting the gun. And I think that is where a lot of people tend to go wrong, myself included, because let's face it, there are some performance expectations. As you have all these people that follow our channel and watch our reviews and watch things that we do, they expect to see cool things. They don't want to see you missing 30 times in a row. So obviously, yeah, there is a little bit of pressure to perform because you basically are kind of performing for people.
Speaking of missing 30 times, okay, so the martini video we did from the tower with myself and Eric and Kevin, I didn't hit it a single time, I don't think. I think I missed every shot, but I'm going to chalk that up to that heavy load.
Okay.
It wasn't a mil-spec load. We're going to revisit that.
So in the vein of this video, there is an explanation for it. Okay, the reason that 600 grain pill seemed to be giving us so many issues downrange in that 600-yard video there is because the twist on the martini it really tops out around about a 540. So that bullet's about 60 grains heavier than what it's really designed to stabilize. Now, something like this Swinburne behind me or Sporter, really any martini, will shoot that heavy bullet at 100 yards for hunting purposes.
Starts to destabilize it.
Very accurately. But as a longer range, the slower twist, being just slightly too slow for that particular bullet, that's probably what was happening. Those bullets were just stabilizing. But what did we do? We recorded it. We saw what was happening. And in the footage downrange, what did we see? The bullets were tumbling, corkscrewing a bit. And we found out, okay, I used too heavy of a bullet. My problem. We'll revisit that video. We'll use the proper military loading. And life will go on, and I bet the gun will be a lot more consistent. But you don't know until you get to the range and put rounds down range. You're not going to find out sitting on your couch at your house.
I'm going to say that Kevin just got lucky in that video, but let's see.
Well, I did too.
One that we haven't put out yet is the P17. So I got extremely lucky in that video.
Yeah, you did.
Dude, it was nuts. Like Eric shot it, and then I got behind it. Kevin introed the video and everything. It's his gun. We just took out there to shoot just to show you guys. And
yep.
And I just picked a spot to aim at. I was bullseyeing the big 22-inch round at 600 yards. And it's the first time I ever shot the gun, whatever. And hit the gopher. And I'm like, what in the world? I'm like, all right, let me just keep that same point of aim and just see what happens. See if I get lucky. And I hit that thing like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, I hit that gopher at 600 yards with a freaking P17 with some hand loads. And those were the hand loads I was talking about earlier.
Never had the issue.
Yeah, I was talking to Ray, and we were real frustrated. I was especially frustrated because you spend all that time loading ammo, and you're very careful. And it was match ammo, too, 168 grain Match King on some fresh 4064 powder. And I was using Greek surplus brass, and I'm thinking, okay, well, the brass I had was brittle or whatever. That's why it was messing up in the Madsen. But come to find out, it was a headspace issue. But then we were having the hang fires, and the only thing I can attribute it to is maybe some bad primers. I mean, my storage conditions are good. It frustrates the heck out of us.
There's a lot of details, guys, that go into this type of stuff. If you're going to be a hand loader, powder storage, primer storage, those all can affect your bottom line on the quality of your ammunition, and it can create a bad day at the range.
It was not a fun day.
And sometimes in terms of videos that we make and stuff and everything like that, sometimes the most popular ones are ones where we just go out and do something and we just laugh at how pathetic we are. So sometimes that happens, guys. Sometimes you got to be able to just laugh at how pathetic your feeble efforts
Or we laugh at how pathetic each other is.
Yeah. It happens. It happens. So hopefully maybe this video can help some of you, or maybe y'all were just bored, or maybe you liked it. I don't know. But we thought it'd be fun to make a video talking about the bad days at the range. I know we kind of covered some of our instances. So let me know in the description box below, not the description box, but down in the comment section. Let me know, what's the worst day you had at the range? Why was it the worst day? What happened? Did you blow up a gun? Did you have a bad hand load? Did something happen? Did you have a bore obstruction? Did someone hurt themselves because they were being unsafe? Guys, let's face it. Firearms are dangerous items that can kill you if they're not handled safely, just like anything else. If I get behind the wheel of my car and do something stupid, or if I'm not following proper protocol, my car can go off the side of the road and kill me, or my motorcycle can kill me, my boat can kill me, everything can kill you, okay? So we have to not treat it like, oh, well, guns are this evil thing. No, guns are an inanimate object that just happen to be dangerous if mishandled, just like anything else. We have to remember to give things the proper care and that it deserves in order to kind of, cherish what you do. I mean, you should really care deeply for what you do. when I go out and I go fishing, I make sure that all my fishing equipment's got new line and fresh leaders, and all my reels are lubed up and ready to go, and I inspect my rods and make sure they're not broken or cracked like this guy breaks rods all the time.
Sorry,
everything you do, you take a precaution. You know, like when you go on a road trip, you check like your wheel bearings and your trailer, and you check your tire tread, and you check your air pressure. All of these little checks that we go through in our everyday life for every little thing that we do. Guys, guns are no different, and I think that that's one thing that is important to mention in this video, is that you're going to have those days when, dang it, I didn't check something or I didn't do something, and now it's costing me time at the range, and it happens.
I keep thinking about things, but we didn't get it on camera, but I was shooting my 9mm SBR one time with my Liberty Mystic with the tri-lug adapter. I didn't have it locked on all the way, so I'm sure some of you guys have shot your suppressors off your guns before, but you're too embarrassed to talk about it. I shot my can off my gun. I was like,
It happened. Actually, the same thing happened to me with my CZ Scorpion.
Oh, yeah?
Day. Yeah, I had a 45. I had the Tyrant 45 on there with the tri-lug, and yeah, it wasn't locked in place, and it just went. It was like.
No baffle strikes or nothing.
It didn't baffle strike.
Yeah,
it fell off the end. But see, if that suppressor would have been falling, and then, all right, boom, I would have shot my suppressor. So
that would be a real bad day.
There's gremlins that will surface if you left them, and we have to do our part to make sure that we minimize the gremlins.
There's a million and one things I know that we're forgetting, but I mean, these are the things that just kind of come up in recent memory.
That's right.
But there's been plenty of times we've been out there and just something's not going right with us or with a gun or whatever the case is, but we always try to give, like manufacturers and stuff that we deal with. I mean, it's like, hey, something's not right with this, but if the second one comes in, it's like, all right, there's something's bad with this. Y'all need to go back to the drawing board.
We'll always give something a second chance.
I
mean, I'm not going to throw, even if it's a gun design, if I go into something and I'm not really liking it so much, maybe it's something I have a predisposed determination where I'm like, I'm not really a big fan. Sometimes I've been changed. So like, when we got that Strike 1 in.
Yeah.
I really did not like that gun at first.
After shooting it a little bit.
But after shooting it, I was like, yeah, son, this thing is awesome. And the same thing on the Mark 23.
Yeah.
When we got that thing in, I'm like,
this thing is
what
huge.
in the heck is this all about?
This giant hammer.
But the proof's in the pudding. Once we got that Mark 23 out, I was like, yeah, this sucker is awesome. And sometimes that happens, guys. You have to have an open mind. You have to have an open mind also to being told when you're wrong. I mean, sometimes it happens. If you're at the range and somebody comes up to you and politely says, hey, you're doing this, I just happen to notice, take that criticism for what it is, guys. I mean, we're all just trying to help each other here. And that's really what the spirit of this video is. Don't get discouraged if you have a bad day at the range. Again, let us know what your stories are. Maybe we'll take some of your top stories. We'll read through the comment section below, and we'll take the stories that we think are the craziest, and we'll revisit this video and discuss some of your things and what we would have done. Maybe we can kind of give you some critique. So anyway, thanks for watching today's video. We have many more on the way, and we'll catch you next time.
See you guys.